Hello and welcome to a little behind the scenes vlog. So I'm gonna keep this short because it's pouring and also I'm already getting quite wet, but I just wanted to show you this scene which I'm photographing today. So I'm here in the Alps. Yeah, it's pouring rain for the last 2 days already, so I figured I just have to find some waterfall to photograph. So I did some Googling and found this beautiful waterfall here, of which I haven't seen many photos, and I've now been shooting it for 2 hours here, and now I've arrived at the final composition. So if we look here, you see my setup. So I have the camera on the tripod and I'm using my little umbrella holder which holds the umbrella just in place, so I can clean the lens, keep it dry, and yeah, compose the shot very comfortably and then take it without having any drops on the lens. So yeah, this little umbrella holder, it's really just nice, especially for such situations. So I want to quickly talk you a bit through the composition, or through what I've been trying to do here, because if you look on this side here, we have the beautiful river going around here, and then in the background we have the waterfall. Now the problem is when I'm on this side here, the big waterfall is hidden behind this rock, so it's kind of cut off. That's not ideal. So if we go to the other side, so on this side here, you see the complete waterfall, but the river in the middle ground is completely cut off. Also not so nice. So what I've been doing, yeah, I've been kind of fine-tuning the composition to be the best of both worlds, so kind of a compromise. So I'm roughly here now, where you see the waterfall, it's just cut off a bit, and you still see the river leading through the middle of the frame and then going around here, and I hope this will look nice. So on the little screen it looks good, but yeah, I can only tell if I look at it on the big screen. So what I'm now going to do is doing some focus stacking, doing some exposure bracketing, and also shooting this waterfall at different ISOs, because if you're shooting such a mighty waterfall, it's important to play around with different exposure times a bit, because sometimes it's the long exposure, sometimes it's the short exposure that will look best. So always experiment, take many photos, and yeah, now let's head to the office and have a look at the photos.
So I hope you like this little behind the scenes from the waterfall. Now, to give you a bit more value from this video, I also want to show you all the compositions I took at this waterfall, also quickly discussing what worked, what didn't work, and then I'll also show you the before and after for the final photo, and going a little more into details about some composition techniques or considerations I took when composing and taking the photo. But first, let's start here with the first photo. So as I arrived at this waterfall, it was kind of overwhelming because it's so beautiful with all the rocks and greenery, but I can tell you it wasn't so easy to photograph it. So what I did first, I took my cell phone and walked around and tried to get a few different view angles of this waterfall. And as I already told in the video, one problem is if I go too far to the side here, to the right, this waterfall will vanish behind this rock. So for all the photos, I had to be careful to not cut this waterfall completely. So here for the first photo, I'm quite close to this little tree here, which I also didn't polarize 100%. So I was using a polarizer, but I didn't turn the polarizer to fully polarize the scene because I wanted a bit of those reflections. This bright reflections is a nice balance to the bright water on the right side. So even if you're using a polarizer, always fine tune it. You don't always need to go full polarization. So here I have the waterfall, and then you see just a bit as the river flows around here. And I think this composition is already quite okay, although it's not perfect yet. So what I did next, after taking around 40 photos for this one, so just making sure I get focus stacking, exposure blending, different ISOs, just making sure that I have everything I need later for post-processing, I went close to the waterfall, so photographing from beneath it. And here there was a lot of spray for taking such a photo. What I usually do, I take the lens cloth, and I have a very big one. I clean the lens and then I hold the cloth in front of the lens, so covering it completely. Then I switch on the 2-second timer, and just before the camera releases, I remove the lens cloth. This way I can avoid water blotches on the lens when taking such a photo. And I think this photo here works also quite nice because I took a lot of photos making sure I get some good flow down here in the foreground. So you have those rocks here on the side leading in, those leading in, and down here you have all this white, but we have some nice balance here with the darker water which I polarized down here in the frame. So all in all, this is quite balanced versus this photo here where I'm not so sure. So I went up on a rock and went to shoot a horizontal, and although also we have some nice diagonals going in from all the sides here, what bothers me a bit with this photo is down here there's a lot of just whitewash, so white water, and I'm not sure yet what I can do with it. So I have a few shutter exposures. I might try to darken this, but I find this is a little bit too much versus this one where we have this nice finish down here. So after taking those 3 photos, I went back to where I took the first one. So let's go to the first one and now compare it to the final photo of the day. So here you see this tree, but what I did, I went a little farther away, which gives me more of this river here in the middle. So I have more of this river flowing around those rocks. And as I said in the video here, this was key. Don't cutting this off completely. So we have the waterfall, it's cut off, but still it has a little space here where it's going around the rock down here, and then we can follow the river. And yeah, let me first show you all the photos I took, because I don't just take 4 photos when I'm at such a location. When I'm at such a location, I take, let's see, where are we here? We're at 375, and I started, the first photo was taken, let's see, so we're here 134. So you see, for just those 4 photos I took over 200 different frames. And yeah, why shouldn't I? It's a digital camera. I just make sure that I take enough photos. There was a lot of rain, so I don't want to have blotches on the lens. I want to have everything sharp. There was a lot of wind, so I changed the ISO, all that stuff. And this is what you also should do. Don't just try to get it all in one frame. If you have the chance, just take many photos and then just use those markers here and select the ones you want for the processing. So here for this waterfall, I made a selection of photos which I might use. I didn't use all of them, but it's basically just like 12 photos which ended up in the final selection, and those are then used to do the processing in Photoshop. And now here is the final photo. So you see, this is the blended photo coming out of Lightroom, nice atmosphere and everything, but I went in and darkened it a bit and yeah, focusing more on the waterfall. So you see here, before there's already atmosphere, and I kind of enhanced it by darkening all the surroundings and creating a clear focus. So what I want to show you, some things I like about this photo in terms of composition. We have a lot of diagonals, a lot of lines pointing into the frame. So for example, starting down here, this rock pointing in, we have this pointing in, also here you have a line pointing in, and then down here there's a line pointing in, this is pointing in. You could say this here creates a line that's pointing in, and then this here. Also down here, some structures all pointing into the frame, and then you have here in the middle, you have the waterfall. So this was what I liked a lot for this composition. So all those lines leading in, and this is something you can always do. Look for lines, look for diagonals that lead or guide the viewer towards your subject. And here we have this nice symmetry. So this is something that works very well. Also, as I said, I made sure to have this waterfall and then also those little waterfalls here in the middle, and then the river leading down. So really nothing where I cut off the waterfall completely, because I wanted a continuous flow of water throughout the frame. And then also I considered something to balance the photo. For example, we have some ferns down here, some nice greenery. So I have this little tree and this greenery on the other side to balance it. We have this greenery, we have this greenery. So there's a nice balance in terms of color tones in the image. And then we have all those rocks down here. So ideally down here there would also be some greenery. This would really balance it out, but I think it's okay. We have kind of the same structure or the same color palette up here with this rock face. So this kind of balances it out. And then in terms of processing, as I already showed you, this area was already quite bright. What I did mostly was darkening everything else. And by this, the viewer is drawn to the brightest parts of the image, also to the most contrasty parts, and the highest contrast in the image is this line here. So this is working quite nicely. Although we have this cutoff, it's also drawing the viewer into the frame. So yeah, this is definitely one of my all-time favorite waterfall shots, and it shows that sometimes plans don't work out, but you still end up with a very nice photo. For example, those 4 days in the Alps, I certainly didn't think that it would be raining all 4 days. So we were 4 days in total, and I did take just one photo, or those 4 photos here of this waterfall, nothing else, because of the weather. But in the end, I think if I get just one photo which I like from such a trip, that's already okay. And yeah, looking for waterfalls, if it's raining, it's always a possibility, and here it worked out. So if it's really the best waterfall photo I've ever taken, I let you decide. I'll show you now 5 of my all-time favorite waterfall photos, and yeah, you just tell me in the comments which is yours. See you in the next video. Bye.